Now we see Module 2, Implementing a Risk Management Framework. Overview of RM framework or process. As a project manager or team member, you manage risk on a daily basis. It's one of the most important things you do. If you learn how to apply a systematic risk management process and put into the action the core 7 risk management process or steps, then your project will run more smoothly and be a positive experience for everyone involved. Now we see 7 steps in implementing RM framework or process. Number 1, establishing the context. Establishing the context is concerned with understanding the background of the organization and its risk and developing a structure for the risk management task. Many of the internal and external parameters that constitute an organization context are similar to those considered when developing the risk management framework. How to establish the context? This process requires the following key steps. Number 1, understand your external context. Number 2, understand your internal context. Number 3, develop your risk management context. Now we see understand external context. The external context defines the external environment in which the organization operates. It also defines the relationship between the organization and its external environment. Now we see key elements of external context: political, economic, social, technological, environment and legal by the international, national or regional. Number 2, understand internal context. An understanding of the organization is required before commencing any risk management activity at any level. Understanding the internal context is important because risk management takes place in the context of the goals and objectives of the organization. Then, organizational objective, policies and process help to define the organization RM policy, specific objectives and criteria of a project. So that's why understanding the internal context is more important. For risk management system and process to reflect each organization's specific needs, the following steps should be taken prior to conducting formal risk identification exercise. Number 1, identifying key stakeholders who would need to be involved in RM communication. Number 2, defining risk categories to reflect the types of risk faced by the organization. Number 3, defining and approving risk criteria to be used when assessing and prioritizing risk. Then we see the key elements of internal context are capabilities. Example, capital, people, competencies, process, systems and technologies. Number 2, information flows and decision making processes. Number 3, internal stakeholders. Then number 4, objectives and strategies. Then policies and processes. And finally structures. Example, governance, roles and accountabilities. These all are the elements of internal context. Then number 3, develop risk management context. After understanding the internal and external context, the next step is to develop the risk management context for an organization. It is recommended that objectives and strategies for risk management, scope, parameters, resources required, and records to be established. Next, we see the second step in implementing RM framework: identification. After establishing the context, the next step in the process of managing risk is to identify potential risk. Risks are about events that, when triggered, will cause problems. Hence, risk identification can start with the source of problems or with the problem itself. Risk identification requires knowledge of the organization, the market in which it operates, the legal, social, economic, political, and climatic environment in which it does its businesses, its financial strength and weaknesses, its vulnerability to unplanned losses, the manufacturing processes, and the management system and business mechanism by which it operates. Any failure at this stage is to identify risk may cause a major loss for the organization. So, risk identification provides the foundation of risk management. The identification methods are formed by templates or the development of templates for identifying source, problem, or event. Next, third step, assessment. Once risks have been identified, they must be assessed as to their potential severity of loss and to the probability of occurrence. Number 4, potential risk treatments. Once risks have been identified and assessed, all techniques to manage the risk fall into one or more of these 4 major categories. They are risk transfer, risk avoidance, risk retention, and risk control. Risk transfer means that the expected party transfers whole or part of the losses consequential of risk exposure to another party for a cost. Number 2, risk avoidance. Avoid the risk or the circumstances which may lead to losses in another way. Includes not performing an activity that could carry risk. Number 3, risk retention. Risk retention implies that the losses arising due to a risk exposure shall be retained or assumed by the party or the organization. Number 4, risk control. Risk can be controlled either by avoidance or by controlling losses. Then we see the 5th step in implementing RM framework, create the plan. Decide on the combination of methods to be used for each risk. Each risk management decision should be recorded and approved by the appropriate level of management. A good risk management plan should contain a schedule for control, implementation, and responsible persons for those actions. The risk management concept is old but is still very effectively measured. Example, an observed high risk of computer viruses could be mitigated by acquiring and implementing antivirus software. Number 6, implementation of RM framework or process. Follow all of the planned methods for mitigating the effect of the risk. Then last step, review and evaluation of the plan. Initial risk management plans will never be perfect. So, practice, experience, and actual loss result will necessitate changes in the plan and contribute information to allow possible different decisions to be made in dealing with the risk being faced. Risk analysis result and management plan should be updated periodically. There are 2 primary reasons for this. Number 1, to evaluate whether the previously selected security controls are still applicable and effective. And number 2, to evaluate the possible risk level changes in the business environment. For example, information risk are a good example of rapidly changing business environment.